Like and subscribe to the channel and listen to the full Road to Valon podcast episode on Spotify.
Hello and welcome back. I am here with my good friend Tracy. And what are we talking about today, Tracy?
So it's from Screen Rant, and it's 10 great character team-ups to expect in Wheel of Time Season 3.
Well, let's start. Who do we want to begin with?
And number 10 they have is Rand and Lan. I'm really looking forward to seeing how they're going to play off this dynamic. There seems to be a lot of focus on how Lan's there to help Rand become a Blade Master. But I think that doesn't give Lan enough credit. Yes, Lan is a badass with a sword, but he's also filled with wisdom, and he imparts some of that to Rand, and I think that plays a big part in Rand becoming the character that he becomes. And so I think that's a good pair up for multiple reasons.
I think with regard to Lan and Rand, to me, it feels like last season that they really explored this schism between Lan and Moiraine. And when we look at the books, this kind of evolves and goes further. It's a bit more drawn out, like it's not as in your face, but you get bits of it that kind of lead up all the way past the Shadow Rising. And that said, with them already doing this kind of breakup makeup,
Right,
not really a breakup, but like in a relationship, like sexual, but they've already explored that. So I feel like what would be really beneficial for the show to do is really putting Lan in a position to be a mentor, whether that be, with the physical stuff, fighting. How often in the books do we get lessons with Lan where he's imparting some type of wisdom, or he's a really great character to use for that, like, exposition info dumping where it's like, well, in this part of the lands, people do this, or warriors act like that, and people do this type of thing over here. Because Lan really is a worldly character in a way that Moiraine is also. But that said, Rand and Lan do have a lot of potential coming up in season 3. I just hope that we put Daniel Henney in a position to really shine, because I think the actor really deserves it. Mm-hmm. And I know some people were disappointed with last season because he was just kind of like a lost puppy, and you love the character so much, you don't want to see him down on his luck, it's just hard to watch. And I think a lot of the times with characters, you want to feel sorry for them, but the moment that character feels sorry for themselves, it's like, ugh, okay. I'm starting to lose sympathy for them, because it's like, you never really want to be that type of character, I feel like, or write that type of character, because you start to lose like that connection. And then there's also that aspect of like feeling like mom and dad are fighting, so it's really uncomfortable.
Yeah, and you're just like, couldn't you guys just make up and like take us all out to Dairy Queen or something? It's gonna be okay, right?
That's the thing about Lan that, in my opinion, if we're talking about Lan from the books, he's a very rational man, but his rationale comes from like his morals and his oaths that mean everything to him.
Yeah, his lived experiences too.
Correct. And that is still in line with the show gave us, but it feels like just a little bit different. He still has that drive, but they dulled his fire a little bit. And that's okay. Not every character needs to be completely stoic all the time, because that's boring.
Right.
But I'm really hoping for this side of like a strong, charismatic Lan. Like you said, his lived experiences from the time he was a child to being smuggled out of Malkier, and pretty much only having warriors as parental figures. For me, I think it would be really smart for them to explore that in terms of his relationship with Rand.
Mm-hmm. I was actually also thinking about how, like, we've already seen Lan kind of step into that just briefly in season 2 when Rand is about to meet Swan and Land gives Rand like, tuck in your shirt, and like the extra stuff that came along with it.
Yeah, and it's also, he's a really great character to kind of pull Rand aside and be like, look, these are the Aiel. Their customs are like this. Like, Land knows a little bit. I mean, he fought in the Aiel War. Like,
Exactly.
He knows the enemy. But so often with Rand and Aviendha, there is that like cultural clash where it's like, we don't understand one another. So I think Lan would be like a good character for Rand to be like, what's going on with this girl? And Lan being like, look, kiddo.
Let me tell you a few things about the world.
And another thing too, they did this in season 1, and I thought it was a really great way to move the story along and make it interesting is when you're having, okay, two examples here. I'm going to tell you which one landed harder for me.
Ooh, I'm
So
excited.
in season 1, we have this exposition moment between Lan and Steppen while they are training, but they're also having a conversation. Two things are happening at once, right? And it made the scene very dynamic.
I loved it.
Move to season 2, and you have the scene with Rand and Lan having that quiet moment inside the palace where we get the cat crosses the courtyard moment.
Right, yeah.
That didn't land as hard for me as the other scene, which is wild because Rand is like one of the main characters and Steppen is like just some guy.
Right.
But when you insert the conversation with something visual, like these people like moving, doing this like athletic stuff, it makes it really dynamic and engaging. Whereas like this quiet conversation, it's like, eh. And I've noticed that Rosamund Pike, let's be real, she is just a badass. Like, she is on top of the craft. But if you ever watch her do a monologue where she's talking for a bit of an extended time, she doesn't just stand there. She gets up, she turns her back, she walks to one corner, turns around. That's so realistic. Think when you're filled with emotion, do you just stand there and not move? No. I want to see some movement, I think. Like,
I was just thinking, like, you are absolutely right. And I loved that scene. I think what they could have done to make it so it had that motion was maybe just have Lan be like, Rand, come to the other side of the room with me. And we're going to like saunter across the floor together. He described it. But like, if you told me to walk like that...
show by doing, like
exactly. I mean, and then there's another opportunity to like link Lan to Rand later on as his guide for sword play too.
Right. And I think that's really important because within this world, the sword forms are a thing. Like,
they're a thing.
That's how you have to learn these to become a blade master. So like, you should be able to see like that type of athleticism, whether it be actually fighting or two people just having a conversation with one another. Like, you want to feel the deadliness and the athleticism in these characters. One of the things I think that is tangential, but
I'm here
Perrin,
for it.
because of Marcus Rutherford's size, when he's just barely moving, like just walking, like he just has
presence.
Yes. And with Rand, he's more like a blade than a boulder. You know what I mean? Like very angular, and his movements are quite a bit different. With Lan, like I'm still kind of like, I really want to feel like who he is as a character through his body language. And I feel like we're just slightly missing that a little bit. And I think maybe that's something that the hardcore book readers are looking for, because I mean, and I'm not saying this is the way to go because I think this is wrong, but I think many people see Lan as like the ultimate masculine macho dude. and having this character have emotion, like, is like, oh, like, these people are like, it's a red flag for me. But for me, like, no, that's not what
I
makes
love it.
someone that's not
Yeah.
what makes someone deadly or interesting or charismatic.
Yeah.
But I think for me, the Lan from the books, like, if you tweaked just like the body language a little bit, I
Mm-hmm.
think you would get that energy. You know what I mean? I don't know. I hope that makes sense.
No, it does. I think it really does. Yeah. I'm hoping at the very least that we're going to get so much more of that in season 3. Like, I don't think there's really a whole lot of doubt that season 3 is basically going to be Shadow Rising. And there are lots of places where land can be added in a really important and vital way in that season because it's there in the books too.
Yeah, another thing that I know we've talked about this before, but I think another thing that they could do to incorporate that is he doesn't have to be, fighting the whole time,
Mm-mm.
but Lan, and not just Lan, but I think like at some point when they're having these exposition moments,
Mm-hmm.
I want them to be like restringing their bows or sharpening their swords and having these like intimate conversations while like taking care of their weapons or something like that. Because also, like, that's another thing where it's like, oh, like, yeah, like, I absolutely believe you're a warrior because of like the fine details of you honing in on your craft. And
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
Anytime that motion is added to something, it's going to be more compelling. And it will add so much to like the world building, just little things like that are actually really important. Like, don't skip them, use them and incorporate them. I think that would be so smart.